with that. And I've also been designing parts for the MMU as well. So during this talk, we're going to look at a lot of things that I've made. Everything I show in this talk is going to be downloadable from my printables page, which is this. It's called Real 3D Prints. And I also have a YouTube channel, Real 3D Prints. It's just kind of starting out though, but it's mostly shorts. But I've got a whole assembly of the MK4 on there, and a lot of the concepts I've been talking about here, you'll see on the YouTube channel too. So yeah, so if you just remember Real 3D Prints and go to printables, hopefully follow me too, so you'll see new models as I get them. I do have a club, but there's nothing in it yet. I'll probably add this one model though, you'll see to it. It's a game board stabilizer kit. I'll mention that later. It's kind of complicated. I do sell that on Etsy as a printed item. But anyway, these are some links here and so on. Okay, so my talk really has 3 sections to it. And it's going to have, you can kind of, if you watch this recording later on, and there's kind of these 3 sections. So it's going to be, the first one is going to be how to add color to existing models for really, this is for like someone really easy just getting started, right? That's kind of what that's focused on. The next section is how to improve the MMU3 and make it work better using a whole bunch of modifications. And the third section is on how to design models specifically for multicolor printing. Okay, so that first section, kind of adding color to existing models for the new user just getting started. So there are really 3 ways that you can add color to an existing model. So the easiest way is just to put a Z height change. So this is where you stop the print, change the filament, and then it's that new color, real simple. And that little refrigerator magnet there, it says Prusa printers. That's what printables was called beforehand. I actually gave that to Joe yesterday when I met him. But that's made with a dark green, and then you pause it and put a white, and then you pause it again and put the little model of the printer and change it to chrome. So that's how you'd make that. It's a simple color change. The next one is painting, and this is kind of my favorite method. This is just going into Prusa Slicer. They're really easy. I mean, you can take any model out there. It's a one-color model, and by painting it, it becomes multicolor. You can make some really fun designs. The next idea is taking a model where the designer has broken it into parts, and then you just assign those parts to spools or color rolls assignments. Now, okay, those are the 3 methods, so we'll talk about them in more detail. This Z height one, you kind of have to think about your model in sections. So you've got the bottom, the middle, and the top. And so that little dog there, you might have the bottom be one color, then the text be white, and then you're going to print the dog in that light brown. You might see those little dots on the dog's eyes and nose. That's just with a marker. That's not a color change. Okay. And then you can do a lot with this color change thing. It's really good for logos, signs, flat things, because you're only changing a couple heights. So refrigerator magnets are a great thing, and that's kind of what I've been doing with it. Not Micro Center one. I gave that to Micro Center, and they've got it in their store on printables as one of their items, and you can have their QR code that goes to their most recently sale items. Now with the Z height color change thing, one thing that you might think about is taking advantage of transparency. So I've gone and that's a model you can download, that filament swatch. But it's in 25, 50, and 75 millimeter, 0.75 millimeter increments. So it shows how the color behaves through the thickness. By overlaying these transparency swatches together, you can kind of get a sense of how colors interplay with each other and change based on the transparency. And that, for example, that pizza orzo thing there, that's a very dark red because that red's printed on top of that black underneath, that middle layer. So you kind of get that deep, rich pasta color red there. So you can take advantage of transparency and actually change your colors that way. HueForge does this to the nth degree, if you've been by their booth. That's what they're doing. They're changing colors based on transparency. They've got a whole method to measure it, overlay, and shape. But it is Z height color swaps. That's the method they're using. Okay? You can automate it with an MMU, but you don't have to. It's a couple color swaps, and it gets that whole effect. Here's that game board thing I was talking to you about. The water is what I want to point out here. The water is a dark blue. It's actually a filament PM color, that dark blue. And then there's a light blue on top of that. but it's different thicknesses, so it looks like the water has lots of colors there, but it doesn't. It's just a light blue, a dark blue, and then a white for the wave crests, and then a tan. Anyway, this model I made here, I'll probably put this in my club, but it basically stabilizes your game, so when you move it, none of the parts move or jiggle around, and those little numbers are also magnetically positioned through embedded magnets, so they don't move around either. Okay, the next idea, this is my favorite way to add color to a model, is through painting it. It's so easy to do. And you see that dino there and that little Highland cow. You know, those are models that somebody else made, really popular models, in fact, on printables. And so I just took it and brought it into Prusa Slicer and made some polka dots and some feet and colored it. And then just printed it. And I think it's just, if you don't take anything else away, this is probably it. Like, learn how to paint in Prusa Slicer. It's just an amazing way. And then you really ought to then take that, if you think you have a good design with your painting, share it back to printables as a remix. In fact, this dino that I designed here, I shared that back to printables, and they used that multicolor dino in some of the beta tests for the XL. I found that out yesterday when I was talking to some people. The filaments, as you paint them, you're assigning extruders when you're painting them in the slicer. You're not assigning a color, so to speak. So think of it, the colors that you pick in the slicer don't have to match the actual colors you're going to use on your spool. Just a little gotcha there. So you're assigning extruders 1 through 5 if you have 5. And then you're just going to, the colors that you're going to, this is obvious, but the colors that you're going to print with are the colors that are on your spool. Okay, another tip in painting is that the models, when you're painting an existing model, sometimes the triangles, all models are made of triangles, right? Sometimes the triangles are really nice. It's like those wings on the little bird. I didn't have to create lines to paint it. I could just paint exactly the triangles as they existed using the fill tool in Prusa Slicer, and the outlines are perfect. I did have to use triangles when I made the eye, though, on that little wobble bird, because there was no section there for the eye area. But for the tail and the wing, the triangles were already there, and I could just click the fill tool and fill them in. Now for the panda bears, the way that you do that, painting it, is you do create triangles, and you use the smallest brush size, and you draw an outline. So I draw an outline around the area I want to be a certain color. Very small line. And then I go back with a fill tool, and I fill it in. And that way you can get very nice differentiations between color differences. Okay, the next and third way, the easy way to assign colors to models is just is when you have a model where the designer, and the designer had to have done this, that's the gotcha here, but the designer had to have already broken out his model into sections or parts or subparts. And this is really easy to do. You don't need to paint anything. You just assign each part to an extruder, i.e. a color, and then that's that color. So this little Penguin Pete that I made, it has 3 colors, and each part is assigned to a color. Here's another example where you're assigning parts to colors. I made this MMU front plate in Fusion 360, and each section of the plate is a different object or part. So all you do is you go into your Prusa Slicer and just to say, what extruder am I assigning this? You know, you could have 2 colors or 5 colors, whatever you want to do. Mix and match the parts and assign them however you want to your colors. Okay, take a little diversion here. So we've been talking a lot about multicolor printing, and I just want to take this one topic here. You know, I consider multicolor printing or true multicolor printing not really a Z-height color change where you're changing it vertically. I consider multicolor printing to be where you have more than 2 or more colors on the same Z height. And that's where it gets tricky. So I made this little model here. If you go into my printables page, you can download that. There's a whole write-up on it. That's actually the nice part. There's a document that talks about how to do this multicolor printing with a single extruder. It's got the tips. So basically, you're going to insert a tool change and do an M600, and it's going to act like a color swap, but it's really acting on the subparts within the model on that single Z height layer. Another little quick thing. So as you start doing these changes, these color changes, it starts to get really tedious. So you don't have to use an MMU. You can sit there and babysit your printer and do 100 color changes if you want, manually. But it's really tedious and you're going to make a mistake. It's really boring and you got to babysit your printer. So the lesson I learned is basically when you get to about 5, starts to get, you got to get an MMU. You're just going to make a mistake eventually. I did 300 of these little refrigerator magnets for this pet company. It got really old real fast. That's 9 color changes, back and forth, changing between black and pink and green. And I have to have a little cheat sheet next to me. What's the next color coming along? So MMU, got to go there eventually if you're serious. When you're using an MMU, you want to think about how to make it more efficient when you're printing with it. So a great way to think about the MMU is you're going to have this, it has this wipe tower that cleans out the extruder with the old color and then it primes the next one. And the wipe tower and the changing only happens, if you think about it, for the first model you add to your plate. If you add a second model, it doesn't do any extra wiping or cleaning. It's only for that first model it's doing all that changeover. So why not print like 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 models at the same time, identical models, so it does that change and you're getting that benefit of scale as you scale up the number. I think you want to add at least 3 models to your plate, but when you get to like 6 or 7, the benefit decreases and the tendency to maybe have an error increases, so there's a trade-off. You don't want to print too many and take a risk, fail the whole thing. So I usually took about 6 models on my plate there. Another way to optimize it is to, it's going to decrease the quality of your print, but to make the layer height higher. So if you print with like a 0.6 nozzle and go to like a 0.35 layer height, or a 0.4 nozzle and use a 0.25 layer height or a 0.3, because you're printing less layers, you're doing less changeovers, and there's going to be a lot less tool changes, and the thing's going to print faster. Quality decreases, but it's faster. Okay, so now we're going to move into the next section. That was section 1 of the talk. So here's section 2. Okay, this is how to make the MMU work better, and I designed this thing. I call it a multicolor system. It solves a ton of problems that I found with the MMU. This thing sits behind the Prusa printer, and you orient the printer sideways, and you've got this thing behind it to the left. You've got all 5 spools, and I had this thing back in June. I've been tweaking this for like 6 months. Back in June, I originally had all the spools in a line, and in June I went to this quad formation because that's the most space-saving, efficient design. And if you think about it, that is the most space-saving design. The 5th spool's behind that, and there's also room for a 6th one if you want as a spare just sitting there. Everybody's moving to cardboard spools because they're trying to be efficient with materials, right? Cardboard spools don't work on rollers. They only work on center hubs with ball bearings. This uses center hub with ball bearings. It supports cardboard spools. There's no friction. You use the MMU bearings that come with your MMU with these variable-sized hubs for all your spools. And so you're taking advantage of the fact that the manufacturers you're buying from are producing these cardboard spools, and this solves the problem of being able to roll on the spool feeder. You can use the slot buffer, which is what I use, the buffer there, or you can use the Prusa MMU3 buffer. I built a different bracket. Here's the bracket you would use with the MMU3. It just goes through this peg in the middle of it. It sits in the same location. So you can swap, you can bring your own buffer, BYOB. I have an open adjustment coupler in the top, that little mountain there. You can touch the filament, feel it, hand load it, kind of fix it there, because the current situation doesn't have that. There's no human interface to touch the filament and kind of feed it in manually. Once you lock everything and load it, you're kind of like, uh-oh, I got to break apart the tubes to get to it? Here you don't. You can touch it and get to it. Those couplers are magnetically joined. They disconnect independently. So as you're loading that slot buffer, they don't like pull each other out and stuff. So it's a very loose magnetic coupling there, that little open adjustment thing on the top. The most important thing here is not obvious at all, though. It's that S-curve shape of the tubing going into the back. That S-curve adds static friction on the inside walls of the tubes, so after a retraction inside of the MMU, the filament doesn't slip out. Prusa originally went with 2mm tubing. That's because they had a problem with the traction. They had to keep the filament in that tube and not slip. Then they went to 2.5. You can, with my method, you can go to 3. I'm using 3mm inner diameter tubing throughout, because with 3mm inner diameter tubing, there's less amount of filament touching the inside walls, so there's less friction throughout the entire system. I'm using 3mm tubing inside the MMU, so I didn't have to chamfer that little tiny 2mm tube, and I'm also using it all the way down to the extruder in the front too. Everything's 3mm. I've got ball bearing spools. This thing flies through with no resistance. There's no friction here. In fact, that actually becomes a problem, not with the Prusa buffer, because the Prusa buffer forces a loop inside the buffer. That wheel they put in there forces that loop. But with a slot buffer, it's so smooth that with some filaments, like really glossy ones, the loop doesn't form. It actually gets pushed back to the spool. So I solved that problem. It's very subtle, but if you look at the little hanging endpoint guides next to the pool, there's the spools, there's a little dial knob on there. That dial knob dials a plastic screw into the side of the filament, and you can manually adjust it on a filament by basis, and it pushes against it, so it adds a little bit of friction, enough to force a loop inside the slot buffer there. And that's optional if you turn that screw, but that solved that problem. So those little hanging adjustment things have a guide at the end that positions the feed right next to the spool so it doesn't loop over the edge of the spool as it's doing. And it also has the friction adjustment knob, and everything here is a PC4M10 connection. And so we'll just go through a couple photos of this thing. This is the platform you have to build. This thing costs, all the parts are in printables. It costs $80 of materials from Home Depot and Amazon, and then you bring your buffer and then you print everything. So it's not including the filament cost or that. And you do it yourself. You have to make this. There it is working with the Prusa buffer with this bracket right here. And you can see how the pathways line up with the filament feeding, line up at the angles of the Prusa buffer perfectly. So it's not putting any tension, unordinary tension. Here's that center arch system that positions the center arch and holds all the components, and that's the bracket for the slot buffer there. And then here's that open adjustment coupler at the top where you can manually touch the filaments and decouple them and put them on there. Here are the hanging endpoints that feed through the endpoints where the spools are with that little friction adjustment knob I talked about, and the PC4M10 connector, and this metal bar you get from Home Depot, and I've got a little thing on the end to protect you from getting scratched as well. And here's some PTFE tube arrangements going into the slot buffer, and you can see on the right where it's loading how that thing decouples with the magnets so they don't interfere. They're all independently controlled. And there's that S-curve I was talking about, the S-curve which reduces the slippage after the retraction. And I've got the measurements in the write-up for this. It's got about 20 photos and a bunch of pages, but that little bar is a 9-inch bar that you have to cut, and all the distances of the PTFE tube are carefully calculated into the 1/4 inch to exactly give you the right S-curve arrangement here to have that retraction controlled. And then you're going to have a little bucket of these little tight fit, exact fit spool hubs, and you print them out ranging from 50 to like 60 millimeters. But I found like with all the spools I use, I only need the 52 and 54 ones. That's 90% of the spools. Just use those. And I just put the ball bearing from the Prusa MMU in there, and it's good to go. Okay, so that's my invention. That's everything I made. Here are some other things that I also use in the MMU, and these are optional. So I use PC4M10 throughout, and I've got the little front plate on the selector there. I've got the little label plate I made there too. I use the 3mm tubing throughout. I designed this rear connection to the MMU and shared it on printables. It's the rear connector for the PC4M10. That's a part that people wanted a lot. I just threw it up there, made it in Fusion 360. Over on the right, I did not design the thing on the right. That's the guy, Peter Larson, designed that. I actually prefer this chimney to the one that comes with the MMU3 because this chimney counterbalances the forces on the chimney itself. There's an adjustment screw that tends to push the chimney to the left. And on the MMU3, they also put the adjustment also on the left, which also pulls it to the left. So everything on the MMU3 is pulling that chimney to the left. And the window of adjustment is very small. But Peter Larson has the adjustment. He has a screw on the left that fastens it to the extruder, but the adjustment part is on the right. And those two forces counteract each other, and that chimney has a bigger window of adjustment. It's much easier to use. I love this thing. Okay, so there it is. That's on printables, all that stuff. All right, third section of my talk, completely different subject now, switching gears, is how to design models in multicolor. So traditional way. You take a bunch of photos, use photogrammetry, right? Here's a little owl I made like 30 years ago when I was in 8th grade. It's in clay in elementary school. Sprinkled some flour on it, took like 200 photos, brought it into AGI Metashape and made a little model of it, sliced it and exported the mesh, brought it into Prusa Slicer and painted it for coloring. So that's one way, but that's not the best way anymore. I don't think this traditional photogrammetry is good. You have to have a video card that supports it. You have to have a good computer, right? You have to have, a lot of these things require an NVIDIA GMU. Those are expensive, and people might not have a good one. A better way now, with AI technology, is to use these mobile apps on your phone. They require fewer photos because they use AI to fill in missing photos. So, the biggest tip I'm going to give you, other than using the painting, is to get the Curie Engine app off the iTunes store. This Curie Engine app, and there's another one, Luma Labs AI. But these apps, you walk around the object, and then it creates the object for you, and you download it later. There's no processing on your computer. It does all the modeling for you, the mesh creation. So you either use a found object that you have around, or you model something in clay. So you can get like the plastic clay modeling stuff, from Amazon, and model a little model, and then use Curie Engine to get a thing of that. I will say though that making a model that way is only the start. You then need to go into Mesh Mixer, which is a free program. All these tools are free, by the way. Curie Engine and Luma Labs give you free exports. There's pro versions too. I'm not affiliated with any of them, but I use them. But the Mesh Mixer is the second step. You've got to improve that model. You've got to add a base to it. You've got to make it solid. These are the tools in Mesh Mixer. Make solid, transform to position it, plane cut to add that base, for that printable base. You've got to get a nice base. Bubble Smooth is like the best tool. Bubble Smooth smooths out all those little imperfections of the scan. And Bubble Smooth, if you hold Control down, Bubble Smooth cuts into the model. If you hold Control down, it pushes out. It adds material. So that's a real good tip. Bubble Smooth with Control, and it's kind of almost the only tool you need, really, to model stuff. When you're modeling in Mesh Mixer, model for 3D printing. So you want to have, you don't want to have support. So all your angles need to be, like the angle that it won't need a support for, whatever that is, you're going to pick, like 25, 30 degrees or whatever. So you can do that in Mesh Mixer. So these are some models I made. At the end of the talk, feel free to come up and get a pink teddy bear. I got a whole bunch here. I'm giving those away right here. So all the ones down here in the front, if you want one of those, I got a whole bunch of them for you there. Okay, and then once you do this process of creating this mesh, and then you fix it in Mesh Mixer, then you of course bring it into Prusa Slicer and you paint it, like I talked about earlier. You paint it with the colors you want, and when you're painting, be aware of when you're always look at the slicer view to see how those layers are actually going to get colored, because that's what you're going to be printing at the end of the day. Okay, the third way to make a model, so we have the first way to design was photogrammetry. The second way was with AI, like Curie Engine. The third way to design a model for color printing is to design it with a design tool like Fusion 360 or an organic modeling tool. And so this little Penguin Pete, I made that in Fusion 360, and this is the hardest way to do it, because the parts can't overlap each other. There can't be gaps between the parts, and the parts have to cut out the other part. It's really confusing to model this way. It's hard to do, but it makes at the end, it makes a better model for the end user, because they're assigning colors to parts. It's really nice. But it is harder to model that way. But you do get these very precise geometric forms using these really powerful modeling software like Fusion 360. So that's the little Penguin Pete. He's sitting up here, this guy. So that's him. Here's the dino I talked about earlier I painted. Okay, so this other thing here, this UFO master, have anybody seen that before? No? I had that stolen out of the back of my car like 30 years ago. I was playing tennis and somebody stole it. It was my little game toy. And you can see the the bottom right picture, that's the actual model of it there. So I decided, well, I would challenge myself to try to learn some Fusion 360 modeling techniques and try to model this thing with these curved surfaces and some new techniques. So this was kind of hard to do for me to do. And it looks sort of like it. I realized, if I had that control panel as a separate thing, I printed that separately because that has like 4 or 5 colors in it. So I'm printing the control panel as a separate thing, and I just use super glue and put that onto the other part at the end, because I don't want to print that whole thing and then have that control panel fail, later. So I print the control panel first, I get a nice control panel, then I print the rest of it, and then I glue the control panel on. But that was a learning project for me. There's some errors in there still. I wouldn't download that thing. It's really just a learning project. Okay, so that's my talk. That's the printables page, Real 3D Prints. So go ahead and follow me there if you want to see. So you get you see the new models coming up, and everything I showed you here. You can download there, and if you want to take on that big MMU3 kind of enhancement project with some of that or not some of it, if you want to ask me questions, feel free to contact me about it. I can help you out with it. I built 4 of those. I've got 4 MMUs, so I've been fine-tuning this quite a bit, and look at the YouTube channel to see kind of it. You can see it in action and how it works and the retractions and everything. It's pretty cool. Okay, well, thank you. So we got about 3 minutes for questions, and feel free to pick up a little pink teddy bear here, and have any questions out there. Do I have any advice on inlays? So an inlay, I guess, do you mean like with lettering and fonts and designs? I think what you would do is you want an SVG. So you probably have an image and you convert it to an SVG first. You can do that in a software called GIMP. It's a free program. And then you can bring that SVG into Fusion 360 and extrude on the sections, and that gives you your kind of your 2-dimensional inlay on top of your surface. Is that what you're trying to do? Okay. Any questions? Yeah, I just want to reiterate again, the tools that I used for the capture of the objects that use the AI tools, I'm using them on my iPhone, and I used 2 tools successfully. One was called Curie Engine, and the other was called Luma AI. And then I use Mesh Mixer, because what you get out of that is unusable. You still have to spend some time to fix it after that. So Autodesk Mesh Mixer, that free tool. Any other questions? We have 1 more minute. Okay, well, thank you, and feel free to get a teddy bear. Thanks. Let me get off the stage real quick because someone else is coming.
you're interested in learning about education and training for additive manufacturing, please make your way to the Build Platform stage at this time.
All right, welcome this morning, everyone. I'm here to talk about a topic that is very important and beneficial to our community and the industry as a whole, and that's education and training for 3D printing. First, I'd just like to introduce myself. My name is Nick Knowlton. I'm a manufacturing and mechanical engineer at the Johns Hopkins University, but more importantly, I'm an instructor at Howard Community College teaching additive manufacturing. So I didn't start out as a professional engineer or a teacher. I actually started out in skilled trades as a machinist and a sheet metal technician. And partway through my career, I recognized there were certain opportunities that were not available for me without formal education and certifications. So fast forward to today, now I'm also the owner of Manufacturing Media LLC and co-host of the Manufacturers Podcast. So we provide free content for those looking to learn a little bit more about 3D printing and manufacturing. But the biggest accomplishment today is being a teacher at Howard Community College and sharing my knowledge and skills with those who want to learn more about our industry and our craft and skill. So today, there's just a few things I want to touch on, and that's why education and standardized training is becoming more beneficial and essential to additive manufacturing, where the industry is headed, and why that is the reason education is becoming important, and finally, the learning opportunities that are available. So a little background, I've been involved in 3D printing for about 14 years, and for a portion of that, I really didn't utilize it more than as like a hobby, something kind of fun to do. And then through my job, an opportunity arose. The part you see here, is what where I say what created it all. So we had a customer come in who was looking to have this cam lever made for an aircraft de-icing unit, and they were unable to have it machined for an affordable price. So I took a look at it and I said, maybe there's another way. I actually had a friend who was a jewelry maker and utilizing stereolithography to make parts. And what we were able to do overnight was produce 6 of these units for a customer using like a high impact resin. And ultimately, even to this day, just a few weeks ago, I checked in with this customer. We're talking about 10 years ago this happened. They're still using these parts, and now they've added 3D printers to their own operations and using them for a multitude of aircraft maintenance equipment. So then there's the question, why would somebody choose to invest in education for 3D printing? The greatest asset of the maker movement is, the collection of information and structural content that's available. Like currently now, if you want to know something about 3D printing, you can go on YouTube, various websites, and read a lot about it. But there's some downfalls to that, and that's that it can take a long time to gather that information and have it organized in a way that can be beneficial for somebody maybe looking to work professionally as a additive technician, or even in their own business, having it as part of a workflow. So what I say is to many people, what if there was a way, what if there was an opportunity that you could gather this information, gain the skills and the knowledge base to then go out and work professionally. So turn your hobby into a career. And with the 3D printing industry growing as it is, there's more of a demand for trained, skilled individuals. And now there's a growing opportunity for them to go get formal education, learning from industry professionals and experienced individuals in manufacturing. Just like any skilled trade or technical profession, companies are looking to hire individuals that have those skills and qualifications. So if I was going to get a job as a welder, they want to know that I can make a successful weld. They're going to look to see if I have a certification or I've been to a welding school. The same thing goes in the industry I'd worked in, which was machining. And the unique thing about additive manufacturing is that it bridges a gap between what we call like blue-collar skilled trades and technical professions. It's somewhere kind of right in the middle, and it still benefits from that education. This is why I'm a big proponent and supporter of that now. To understand why education is important and why it's growing, we can look to some of the industry trends. So just in the short gap between 2019 and 2022, we've seen an increase in the market share of functional parts and end-use parts, as well as the market share in education and research. Seeing an increase in end-use parts and functional prototypes and functional applications, that's an indicator that industry stakeholders and businesses, they are now utilizing 3D printing for their manufacturing operations. That being said, with the growth of industry and utilizing 3D printing, they're going to require the workforce and skilled labor to go with it. So, we can look at other resources, with these charts here can show us some data that is very useful to understanding, what we should be teaching as well. But we don't have to look at charts and data to understand that the industry is growing and the need for education that will follow it. A simple Google search, we can see that stakeholders in an industry that they are adding 3D printing into their processes. So not only the military and government subcontractors, but now in the private and public sector with consumer products like automotive here. We can see Ford Motor Company, BMW, Audi, Chevrolet, they're all utilizing 3D printing now in their pervasive workflow and assembly lines. But the future of additive manufacturing needs the trained and skilled technicians. Now we have growing standards. Part of the prohibitive nature of 3D printing in the past to industry was the lack of standards. Now with the growth of ASTM F42 and the recent addition of NASA 6030, this gives a level of confidence to industry stakeholders to now adopt 3D printing. We also have industrial buy-in through direct digital manufacturing. Now with companies that have online quick turn instant quoting, companies are investing in using 3D printing in their products, which ultimately in turn, most companies trend to vertical integration, and these are all indicators that the skilled technicians will be added on to their operations. The pervasiveness also, technology is increasing, it's becoming better. That's attracting more of the legacy or conventional manufacturers to add it into their operations. So we're seeing monthly companies that relied on conventional manufacturing like molding, machining, casting. They're now using 3D printing to augment, supplement, or as a primary source of their production. And as 3D printing develops, the technologies develop, and that includes the software. Having design capabilities like topology optimization, generative design, those require a set of skills that are not readily gained by one on their own. So having formal education and training programs, they provide that learning for the students. And this is just a snapshot here locally in the DMV area of companies that have active additive manufacturing roles within their organization. You can see a combination of government entities, government subcontractors, and a lot of the aerospace and defense industry right here in Maryland, Delaware, Virginia. And they have active listings and are seeking out skilled technicians. With a quick search on Indeed, I was able to find a handful of listings from well-known and established companies that are seeking out individuals that have credentials and have experience and knowledge in 3D printing to run their additive departments. So that brings us to the question, what education and training opportunities are currently available? One opportunity that I'm proud to be part of is the Additive Manufacturing Certificate Program at Howard Community College, right here in Columbia, Maryland. And I can say, as someone who's been through skilled trade apprenticeships as well as engineering school, if a program like this had existed when I had first was looking to develop my skills, I would have been the first one in line to sign up for it. It provides a very unique and dynamic learning experience that is going to be beneficial now and moving into the future. So we might ask, who is this certificate program for? Who is it really targeted to? So our program is not targeted towards one specific group, but anyone. Makers, engineers, business owners, manufacturing technicians, technology students, even teachers, or those in the career change looking for a new skill set. Then the common question we get a lot when we talk to individuals about our program is, what would I learn or what am I getting out of this? And, we can show you, the next slide. This is just a snapshot or an overview of just some of the topics that we touch on. We take students who may not have ever seen a 3D printer before, have no knowledge. We can take them from day one, fundamentals, and when they exit the course, they are ready to step out into industry and work as technicians or designers in 3D printing. And we cover topics like the history, the economics, and the industries and applications that 3D printing are used in, as well as more technical-based topics such as process selection, design for additive manufacturing, materials and materials testing. We also cover entrepreneurship for individuals looking to integrate it into a small business or convert their interest or passion into a business. We touch on fabrication approaches and methodologies, process optimization, commercial and industrial uses. We also focus on CAD and mesh manipulation and development. So a lot of students, they may not have experience with CAD. We're able to take them through several CAD courses where they're able to model, create 3D models to use for their printing on their own. We also touch on some things that are very important for industry. That's production planning, cost estimation, and this is just a list. There's much more that we cover. And I would say our students get a well-rounded experience. A lot of our instructors are working in industry, and they come in to share those applicable real-world experiences and knowledge. So we're able to teach from several perspectives. So the students are, regardless what they're trying to do with their education, whether start their own business, work for a company, or maybe just, generally gain more knowledge, they're able to do that. We're able to deliver that information dynamically and very we're able to deliver it in a very up-to-date and current way. So it's understandable that not everyone that has an interest or passion, but would like to go to a professional level is able to enroll in an academic program. I know myself, having a family and 2 kids, that it's not easy to take classes. So this was part of the driving force. Myself and one of my close lifelong friends, we decided to start a free education opportunity for people of all ages, from young children to adults, anyone in between. So in our focus, we're looking, how do we deliver this? So we're leveraging social media through the podcast. So one thing we created was the Manufacturers Podcast, and that's an all-encompassing educational opportunity. It's a 100% nonprofit organization, veteran-owned and operated, and we create content not only in 3D printing but other manufacturing as well, to try to give individuals some exposure and experience to the skills and knowledge that they would need to be successful in industry. In closing, I won't take a lot more of your time. What I've come to find out working, having throughout my entire career, there's one thing that nobody can ever take away from you, and that's your education and what you've learned. And you're able to leverage that in many ways. And with the growing workforce, additive manufacturing now taking a larger market share of the industry as a whole, currently now and into the future, the need for skilled additive manufacturing technicians, it's never been a higher need than now. And that's my teaching at Howard Community College has really been a passion project. I didn't do it for money. I didn't do it for bullet points on a resume. It was an opportunity I wasn't even looking for. It kind of popped up, and I said, now here's the time to give back. As people, when I was first starting out, when I was young, 18 years old, people took the time to teach me. So now I'm able to give back to manufacturing, to students, and it's really inspired me to take on this role, and that's the whole reason I'm here speaking today. And if anyone has any further questions, I'd love for you to come visit us at the Howard Community College booth up on the concourse level. We have a lot of our student projects out there. You can see what the students have done. We can give you a lot of more information to talk to you about the opportunities. And with that, I'd like to thank you all and have a wonderful day.
Ladies and gentlemen, if you are wanting to watch the Death Racers' last battle of the weekend, we will be outside. If you're looking for outside in the dock area, go to the stage and then go outside from the stage. We will be racing in about 5 or 6 minutes. Immediately following the Death Races, the 3D Gloop robot will be doing tug of war challenges. So come on out and tug of war with a robot from 3D Gloop. Come on out, get Death Races and a robot right now. Let's do it.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is a last call for the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air contest. At 12:15, the voting will officially stop. If you want to cast your votes, drop your tokens off. Please make your way to the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air booth under section N on the floor.
Ladies and gentlemen, in about, what do we got here? About 15 minutes on the stage, we have Maker That Money with the 3D Gloop crew. Come on over, check that out. It's going to be a heck of an interview. Maker That Money, 12:30, right over here on the stage. Also, right after that, 1:30, Recreator will be over here at 1:30. All right, ladies and gentlemen, 5 minutes till Maker That Money right over here on the stage with 3D Gloop. Also, 1:30, Inland, what do we got? Inland Filament is giving away a 3D printer at 1:30. I think Print and Play, I think the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, is that over or they're still voting? It's over. All right. And at 1 o'clock, we have the sponsor races upstairs. The sponsor races upstairs, where Joel is currently. So check it out, 5 minutes. 5 minutes of counting till Maker That Money on stage. And then, what do we got? 1:30, Inland Filament is giving away a printer. So get over there, get registered. 1:30.
Testing. Okay.
Hello. Hello? Yeah, that's good.
That's great.
Thank you. All right, we're going to wait 2 more minutes, then we'll get started. Hello.
I think you're going. I think you're live.
That's it. We're live. How's everybody enjoying their ERF so far? ERF 2023. Let me get a woo. That's a good woo. There it is. There it is, up in the cheap seats. I love it. David Tobin, ladies and gentlemen. Always good for a woo. I am Pooch. This is my good friend Andrew of 3D Gloop.
How's it going?
We do a regular podcast called Maker That Money. We talk about maker entrepreneurship. So specifically, we, like you, got our start in this thing. We love making stuff, and we said, you know what? Maybe we can make a go of this. How do we make a living out of it? And we started the podcast as kind of a series of phone calls of sharing catharsis and pain and shared trauma around all of it. And it kind of evolved. Well, maybe we should start recording this.
Yeah.
So, I know everybody in this day and age has a podcast, but this is you getting to listen in on our kind of personal journey. We always disclaim we don't have it all figured out. It is a work in progress.
It's always progress.
What it was 2 years ago, or not quite 2 years ago when we got started, and what it is now is where we are. Different things. A lot of things have changed.
Oh yeah.
But anyway, that's the background on what Maker That Money is. We are on all the podcast platforms. Feel free, like, subscribe, do all the calls to action. Generally, though, we do 9 a.m. Pacific on YouTube. So if you want to interact, if you want to chat with us, if you want to call in and ask questions, we do all of that. I see a lot of familiar faces with here, or people that are generally in our chat in real life, which is wild.
It's so nice to see everyone here in person.
So not getting to see like Mike's little chat bubble icon pop up. I need that visual that we get from the chat bubble sometimes. But we're going to count on you to hit us with some questions later. We're going to try to shoot for about an hour is what we usually do. Sometimes we ramble and go long, but we'll do some Q&A at the end. The theme of today's podcast, today's episode, this is actually season 2. This will be episode 5 of season 2 for us. And we just said seasons are like we take our summer break.
Yep.
And we're back from break now. So we follow the school year.
Yes. We need a little bit of time off to just kind of, recharge the batteries.
And I think that was a good pattern,
Yeah.
So that's what the season break is, but it's arbitrary beyond that. The theme today, though, is a rising tide lifts all benchies, as I like to say. It's something, if you've listened to the podcast before, you've probably heard me say it. You probably get sick of it.
He loves that phrase.
I do love the phrase because, honestly, man, like the community, the word community gets thrown around so much these days.
It's
the
everywhere.
3D printing community, printing community. What does that even mean anymore, right? And unfortunately, people have differing opinions on what the approach should be and whether or not how you choose to participate. If you're going to be that person that's speaking truth to power and I'm going to just tell it how it is, or if you're like more of a let's shine a light on people and raise
Absolutely.
up. And I think that we all look for different things from different people in the community, and we are a growing community. And so what we were 10 years ago is not what we are today.
I mean, heck, look at the community last year versus this year. I mean, look at this show.
Even within a year. Sure.
Within a year.
Yeah.
I mean, what's crazy is like 3D Gloop, we actually got our start here at ERF back in 2018. The inaugural ERF, we were here. We had a small little booth, a small little table. We were showing off our products. And I remember, like, not every table was filled. And, there was a decent amount of people. But to see it here now, 2023, like, this is incredible. And to see the energy and the excitement and everyone just enjoying themselves, like, this is community. And this is how it's been growing.
Yeah. And it's nice. And it's nice to see that despite all the vitriol and the crappy comments that we see online and all that stuff, that genuinely when you come to these events and you interact in real life, we all realize like it's not that bad.
Yep.
And that I get an energy from coming to a show like this.
Absolutely.
Unlike anything else, because it's like, no, this is where we get together, we talk about ideas, we share things, and it spawns new ideas. And that's what that means to me with that rising tide.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's just the sharing of ideas.
Yeah.
And it's a great thing. That's why I always encourage people if you're thinking about doing a business, starting a business, or even if just personally getting out and interacting and going to events, even if they're small events, local mini maker fairs, all that stuff, there's a lot of value in that.
Yeah, I mean, for me, these events are an opportunity to connect with individuals, on a personal level. Yeah, we have a business, and we're trying to actively build our business, but to be able to interact with our customers and see and hear the projects that they're working on, it builds on all of the ideas that I have and things that I'm thinking about doing for the future. Like, oh, what else could I do? What else could I build? What could I make easier for them? How could I help? There are so many really awesome projects that we got to be a part of here at Earth.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's a way to just build each other up. And I love his phrase, even though I rag on it all the time, the rising tides lifts all benches. It's absolutely true. Yeah. Because the more we interact, the more we connect with individuals as people, I think there's more opportunity to grow together stronger as that community.
Well said. Well said. So, little audience participation time, just to get a sense of our community in front of us here right now. How many of you guys actually run an Etsy shop or have a business or a website or do like 3D printing? So these are our people here. I mean, and you can absolutely relate. It is. I'm gonna wait till that announcement finishes just a second. It is not an easy thing. I'm sure many of you have been at it for many years, and maybe it's just kind of a side hustle thing, and that's great. And maybe many of you are trying to grow it. So let's do like the show of hands thing. Like, how many of you been at it for more than 5 years? More than 5 years, okay. How many of you been at it for like more than 3 years? Okay. How many of us like the first year? You're like, okay.
Nice.
And I got it. So first of all, kudos to everybody that's doing it, because it is not for everybody. It's a brave adventure. There's a lot of things about us as makers that make us terrible business people. I think you guys can all relate to that, right? We just want to make cool stuff.
Yep.
And running a successful business requires a lot more than just getting to make cool stuff. Making one of something, as I always say, and making 10,000 of something is a completely different thing, right? So we come to maker fairs like this or RepRap festivals, and we get energized, right? Because we see these projects and say, I could do that.
Yep.
I could build that. I could sell that. And we get this great feedback. People are like, oh, you know what? I would buy that from you. Can I buy that from you? That's how I got my start. So we sold filament. We sell filament storage boxes. And some of the people here approached me like, I have that original one that was like pre-V1 that we didn't even know if it was a product. We were just like, well, we like this. And we sold 15 of them on the first Earth that we came to. And we loved the energy we got from doing that. And we're like, well, I guess we have a business here. And how many of you guys feel like you kind of fell into your business in that way? Like, did you have a business plan, or was it just like people were like, I want to buy what you're making? Yeah? Yeah. Sorry, tell me your name again. Chris, sorry, my voice just cracked. I've been talking a bit this weekend. Chris was just saying, he was just sharing the experience, like basically there was something that was a high price, $80 or whatever, and it was ridiculously overpriced, and you're like, I can do it better, I can do it cheaper. Yeah. They were building a mold, and you're like, this could be a good application for 3D printing. Perfect.
Wow.
Perfect. I love hearing stories like that. We love the tool set. No other. This is the beauty of this space to me.
Yeah.
Like, when's the last time you went to a drill press convention? When's the last time you went to a table saw? Like where else is the tool like the passion in the same way that a 3D printer is? And that is such a cool thing. It's enabled the creation of not just like neat projects, but like businesses are born of it, right? Like we celebrate the tool set because of that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and then all of the other aspects of 3D printing that go around it. Like it's so cool to see the rapid innovation that's happening. We're looking at multicolor 3D printing now, multi-material 3D printing at the same time. Just all of the other different products that support this whole industry. It's incredible.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm encouraged, and I want to encourage you guys as well. And I also want to encourage that what you think of your business right now and where you are right now may not be where you are in 2 years. You may decide it isn't for you, and that is totally fine. But when we talk about the rising tide, I would encourage you, if you're looking to get, what's the saying? If you want to get further, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go further, go together.
Go together. Yep.
And I think that has a lot of power. And so coming to things like this and talking to people and sharing ideas and thinking, you know what, I can probably go further if I invest in my network. I always say your network is your net worth.
Yep.
And I think that's really true. So I encourage you to have those conversations. I know that as technical people, a lot of times we don't feel like we have the same soft skills required, but like this is a muscle that we need to flex. And I encourage you guys to do that. That's a really powerful thing. The AV guy was leaving. I was going to ask, is it possible to get a remote to take questions, or do we not have one? Okay, all right. Well, we're just going to do the best we can without that. That's fine. I guess we're tethered to the podcast thing anyway, so maybe that's not a good thing. But tell me now, what's interesting to me is like looking at it on this crowd. Yeah. There are many people here that we've known the better part of a decade, almost, right? And that's become like an investment in the community, and we've gone to many other shows, and we work professionally, and we've evolved. Like now, the doors that have been open to me have been just incredibly amplified by just connecting with people and having things fall into your lap and stumbling into things that you wouldn't have considered otherwise. Can you talk about experiences like that in your business world?
Sure.
That have made a massive difference in some kind of community connection?
I mean, as I was saying earlier, we got our start by attending an event like this, literally this event, the inaugural event. And it became core to our company DNA and culture to attend these sorts of events, maker fairs, 3D printing festivals, in ways in which we can connect with the community members and our customers, and also with the other companies around us. Being able to talk with, a filament, manufacturer. Maybe someone's working on a really cool project and, they need some help. They need some sponsorship. Just being able to, have time to mingle and communicate. It's amazing what it can do and the doors that it can open for everyone. As you're building your business and you guys are here just checking out cool stuff, seriously think about ways in which you could work with other makers, other businesses. Are there ways in which you guys could just shine a light on someone else? Because, if you actually go take a look at our booth over here, you'll see there's a big open space. We're not using it to push our product. We're using it for people to come and hang out and just chill and, have a good time. We have some really awesome creators literally right behind us where we said, hey, let's partner. Let's make our booths really big so we can have a space for everyone to meet these awesome people and just hang out and have fun.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what it's all about.
Yeah. A lot of the times, this is something that I felt like maybe an overly obvious statement, but I'm like, if you want to pick the people that you want to surround yourself with, like, be the one that throws the party.
Yeah.
I mean, it seems obvious, right? But I'm like, there is so much power in that. Like, people want to come and interact and all that stuff. Yeah. And, when you come to something like this, you don't always get to choose who you interact with. But it's like, if you want to host this, so that's why I give a lot of credit to the event creators that are like, that do this. Because event management is a business in and of itself and all that stuff with a lot of challenges and logistics and stuff. But throwing the party and being the ones that host it allows you to interact with a lot of people and can elevate your networking capacity in a big way. So, pro tip there. I want to pivot for a second. So we talk about community. We've talked about in real life community, IRL community. Very important, especially in this day and age with social media. But I want to talk about social media.
Oh, yeah.
I want to talk about online stuff.
Sure.
Okay, so how many of you guys out there are doing social media of some kind? Any of the major platforms? Okay, great. Yep. So the first thing I need you to get your phone out. You're going to follow RepCord, R-E-P. No, I'm kidding. You realize, obviously, how many of you guys maybe started on a platform and left there because it didn't feel like it was for you? Maybe you were on Twitter and then you went to somewhere else. Yeah. And just like there's evolution that's happening in terms of like as more people are coming into these spaces, it doesn't feel like what I remember or what I valued. So I think that's a relatable thing. How many of you guys feel like these are big sales funnels for you, or a potential like media out. Like, how much of your sales are coming? Like, is more than half of your sales coming from like your social media impact? Raise your hand if you feel like that's the case, or a quarter.
Yeah.
So maybe not that much. So maybe is there diminishing value in it? I mean, like, I have a lot of questions around the interaction. Now, how about not social media, but like who runs a Discord server or a forum of some kind? Okay. And do you feel like that's a good means of outreach and creating your own community, throwing your own party, like, and having direct messaging with your customers and your communities? Yes, so he's saying he can answer in real time. It's a bi-directional communicate. It's a good, convenient bi-directional communication thing. Absolutely, absolutely. What's your experience been with social media and the value to your business?
You know, I mean, I will say, you know, as a technical person, I haven't been the best at, you know, leveraging these social platforms or even trying and coming to these events. But, you know, as Pooch was saying earlier, this is a muscle that you need to stretch, you need to work. And, you know, recently I've been putting a significant amount of effort and work into this, as I know that because we are continuing to grow, this is such a crucial part of our business. As I mentioned, it was kind of core and fundamental to our DNA and culture. As we continue growing as a company, I need to be more involved in this community, more involved socially, you know, connecting with individuals as people, meet them where they are.
How many of your guys' general opinion, like with social media, do you feel like it's becoming raise your hand if you feel like it's becoming an increasingly toxic space to be?
Yep.
It's less healthy. Like, so are we seeing as that tide rises, as more usership gets in there, as bots invade, as billionaires take it over and do weird stuff with it?
I mean, for me, I think I've seen social media be better than ever. You know, that's my opinion, though. You know, I've seen some amazing connections happen, some amazing, you know, interactions happen. I mean, just the way in which these awesome projects have evolved on social media, or, you know, just again, as communities continue to grow, you know, inside, you know, these just general spheres of social media influence. But that's just my experience.
No, I have to agree with you, and I think what I'm getting at here is like the perception is that there's a toxicity. But there is a massive upside, and if you put the effort in, just like you put the effort to come into an event, to cultivating your feed properly, muting people, blocking people, that is important, because you want to cut out what is not useful to you, and then and participate in the other thing. The other thing I think a lot of people miss is we think we're trying to build up a following. And you know, you come and you'll put your social media tags out and stuff like that. But I think a lot of people miss that, like, it's a two-way street, and you get what you give a lot of times. So you have to invest in commenting on other people's stuff, and you know, being positive in that regard and stuff. So it is an investment, but in this day and age, there are more tools than ever.
Oh, absolutely.
I'm seeing incredibly new, different numbers. Like, we're investigating new spaces, like where I can directly link my store to like my Instagram, and like, every time I post something out there, there is a very clear analytic sales bump. Same thing with TikTok shops and stuff like that. I know we have like a lot of these preconceived notions about the value of them.
Sure.
But if wielded well, they bear a lot of fruit. And it is a community, despite the fact that I think we think of them as like these cesspools of toxicity.
Well, you know, one of the things I think is really interesting if we're talking about social media here and the ability to build the business around, you know, let's look at our products here, for example. You know, I'm not the greatest at pushing our products through social media or making content or creatives, but, you know, by engaging with members of the community, sponsoring cool builds, you know, just making a high quality product and treating customers with, you know, respect and, you know, like, just helping them do stuff that has paid dividends. Like, we'll see, you know, someone just will randomly pick up our product and post it on social media and talk about it and praise it, and they become an evangelist, essentially.
Absolutely.
And we'll see massive spikes because people are sharing, people are talking, and they're talking about what we're doing. And that's just because we're, you know, just trying to be, you know, like, helpful.
There's so much power in that, and I feel like, again, this seems like another obvious thing, but like, especially us as makers, I don't think we like to be sold to. We like to discover solutions to things. And so when you have people doing your sales and evangelism for you. I always say, like, you want to find those ways to encourage other people to do your selling for you. We see things traditionally like affiliate programs and all that stuff. Like, no, I don't like that. I like when somebody goes to the trouble to take a picture of your product, or like, hey, I just got some gloop and I made this really awesome model with it. You retweet that, you post that, you're like, hey, can we use this on the website? You like, that is gold. And you should encourage that kind of behavior, because there is way more impact in that, in people seeing and discovering it other places, than you talking about your own product. How many people feel like you avoid, or you don't like to feel like you're tooting your own horn when you're like trying to put content together? Like maybe a little shy about it?
I'm guilty of it.
Yeah?
Yeah.
I think that's a common thing. I think one of the challenges as makers, we often say, is like, we're not salespeople.
Yep.
We don't want to brag about things. But this is where, that divergence is like the biggest thing that I think most people miss when you're getting into business, doing this professionally, is you have to advocate for yourself. So don't think of it as like, I'm being salesy and all this stuff. Like, no, this is you, like, taking your security. You have to sell. If you do not sell, you will not exist. And I always say, you don't have a sales problem, you have an awareness problem, because we're in the overall community and stuff, the world at large, like the bazaar that there is, everybody's shouting from the rooftops, like, hey, come look at my thing, come look at my thing. And how do you rise above that noise?
Well, I mean, for me, what I found is helpful is just, again, showing off something cool that you're doing. It's not something like, oh, hey, look what we're capable of doing because of X, Y, or Z. It's, hey, look at the thing that I built.
Yeah.
I mean, we bought a giant robot and brought it to this event to play tug of war. Like,
Because you can.
Because
and
we
it's
can.
Awesome.
And it's just for fun. That's it. And like, people ask, like, what is it used for? Like, what do you, like, it's a, for us.
What do you mean, what is it used for? Tug of war.
It's for use for tug of war. It's just for fun. And I mean, people have this ability to interact with it and enjoy it and get to use our product in a way that they never really kind of thought about using it. It's weird because they're actually using it because they're playing tug of war with it, and it's this experience that they're going to take with them. So in the, social spheres of the internet, think about ways in which you can build something cool and they can use, by seeing it, like, get enjoyment out of it.
Yeah, there's so many like exciting applications. I mean, think about what it is that made you excited about the product, and I guarantee you there's so many other people that are excited about the same thing. And you just need to connect with them in that way. Share the story of it. Share like why this is cool. And if you show your passion and you show your energy, that is so powerful. We got to bring it back to the community. Bring it back to the community. No, I mean, I think this is all good. I'd like to. We've gone about. There's that voice crack again. I've gone beyond the sexy raspy to the like, prepubescent cracking. Let's open it up for a little Q&A. It can be anything about community and any of that. Unfortunately, we don't have a mobile. If you're a brave soul and feel like you can come down here so we can at least amplify you so we can all hear. I love two-way conversation. And if you have a question, you want to raise your hand, you come down here. Come on, Mike, you got something for me, please? He's got nothing today. Come on down here, Chris.
We got
and
another one
then I'll
right
get
over
you
there.
next.
So yeah, I'm Chris. So a lot of times there's this dichotomy between a comment section being, quote unquote toxic, and then there'll be other creators where you'll get this, oh, we have the best comment section,
Yeah.
And that's can you guys dive into that dichotomy? How do you lead that? How do you cultivate that so that you have a proper, helpful, useful comment section? Because that's a leadership problem. That's a
really great question. So to repeat his question, like, how do you, some people really like their comments section of, I guess, anywhere, your content and whatnot, and some people feel like it's a really toxic space.
Yeah.
Just an anecdote I want to say, and then I'll have you dive in.
Sure.
I can't remember who to attribute this for, but like, there's a common saying in the creator world that like, reading the comments is a form of cutting a lot of times, where it's just like you're just a little bit
too
going like a little too deep on and like exposing yourself, but there is good in it as well, right? And that's what I was talking about too. I think you need to You need to protect yourself from the fact that there will always be bad actors out
Yep.
there. It is stupid easy for them. A lot of them are bots now, and you don't even realize it and stuff like that. You can't spend too much time in there. It's not human nature, but you have to protect yourself. But why don't you talk about your commenting experience
Sure.
and positivity here?
I mean, I think it really comes down to just responding to the things that you think have merit to respond to, and letting the other things just be noise, because it will always exist. And I think like when I'm. For instance, like when you're trying to train a dog or a pet, like you reward the good behavior and you respond
Good
to
boy.
these
It's a treat.
You respond to the comments or the reviews or whatever it might be that are positive in nature, and you're showing an upbeat, positive attitude. And then in the negative ones that are maybe they're attacking or whatever, you try and respond in a positive light and you leave it alone. You treat it as noise beyond that. They're always going to exist. I know that in dealing with customers, like we've had many conversations about this, when to fire a customer, because it happens. We get bad customers all the
Absolutely.
time.
Yep.
And there is behavior that we just will not tolerate. And we try and we be positive. We try and help the customer. We hear them out. But if their behavior is just not in the, in the good area, we just say, you know what, we're done. Maybe it's a refund, maybe it's whatever, and we stop responding. That's it. We cultivate this by, putting our energy into what we want to get back, I think.
Yeah, I always like to say you're investing in your mental health a lot of the time with it too, and just like in real life, think about how it exactly. You surround yourself with the people that build you up, not the ones that break you down,
Yep.
right? So you just need to look at that as an extension of it. And unfortunately, it's just way too easy for people to say stuff online, hiding behind things that they would never say to your face.
Yeah.
One really good tip I got from Bob Claggett. I like to make stuff. I don't know how many of you guys follow him, but he told me, he's like, when you get a nasty comment, because the downside of this is the bigger you grow, the more this is a problem for you, right?
Yep.
You're just flooded with commentary. But he said, if you look at a comment that is negative and you read it in that whiny, like, your face is so ugly,
It removes the energy.
It completely removes the energy from it, and you're like, okay, and you're able to move on in a different way than like really internalizing it. And I thought that was an interesting coping mechanism.
Yeah. I think this gentleman had a question.
Yeah. Thank you for awesome question, by the way, Chris, and I appreciate the fact that you're taking notes.
Yeah.
So I run a manufacturing company, and I'm trying to bring a 3D printed watch to market, and I'm having a really, really hard time sourcing stuff from U.S. manufacturers. So I was wondering if you guys could talk about how you go through sourcing, how do you make sure quality is there, and how do you make sure safety is there as well?
Sure.
So I'm sorry, I didn't catch your name. What was it? Josh. Thank you for the question. Josh asked about sourcing.
That's a tough
He's
one,
running
yeah.
a 3D printed watch company. Is that right? What are you guys called? CT3D. Okay, go check out ct3d.com. .tech. CT3D.tech. Awesome. He's asking about sourcing. Sourcing is something that is.
You've had some fun with this.
I have a lot of trauma around sourcing because it's an important part. Obviously, when you're looking at the BOM, the bill of materials of anything that you're making, more complex it is. The more that you bleed here, the more that this can matter to you, and that obviously, driving that price down, bringing the price down by finding better sourcing. This is near and dear to me, but I want you to start because
So
I'll try to tie it up.
Sourcing is always a difficult thing. For how we at Gloop handle these sorts of things, we start and we try and break it down into simple, small problems. What is it that we're trying to build? Like, this is the widget, and the widget consists of X, Y, and Z. And each widget needs sub-widgets or work in progress or whatever it might be. And if it's something that we can do internally, figure out if there's a process in which we can build it or we can find someone to build it for us, and then how do we scale this up? For sourcing, like for our products, like we're dealing with chemical reagents. That's really difficult. I mean, there's regulations, there's certifications that we have to have, and I remember at the very beginning it was daunting. A lot of it comes down to We've talked about this on the podcast too before. When you're trying to get started too, you're going out to these companies and you're like trying to order 100 pieces or 200 pieces.
Which
Be
is like you're
honest.
nobody to
Yeah,
them,
be
right?
honest with them.
Yeah.
Tell them, listen, I'm small, but this is what I'm trying to do. Show them your passion, show them your energy. Tell them this is what I'm trying to build, and this is the traction that I've started to see. You understand that you're probably going to have to pay a premium, and that's okay.
Yeah.
We had to do it. It's that tax. But as you keep grinding towards that next thing, can you make do with this piece? Can you make do with this product? Maybe it's you buy something and you tear it apart for another piece. Maybe, I remember the early days where we were hand cutting our labels on a Cricut machine because we couldn't afford to run hundreds of labels at a sticker company, and now it's like we're ordering in batches of 10,000 or more. And it's about figuring out ways in which you can make do. It's painful at first, but start wrapping process around it, and then be honest with these companies, show them your energy, your passion, your roadmap, and they will usually find a way to work with you.
Yeah, you got to understand too. They're getting like hundreds of inquiries a day, and everybody's talking a good game when they're brand new.
Don't
but
say
a lot
you're
of
going to
it's-
buy 10,000
So,
pieces
yeah,
when
yeah,
you're
yeah,
not.
yeah. Give me this great pricing because like nobody wants to bank on the maybe if this goes well in a month I'm going to order 10,000 people.
Yeah.
They hear that all the time.
Yeah.
80-20 rule applies. Look at where you're going to make the most impact with like the smallest chunk to begin with. So it's like this is a process, and this is something that is not an overnight like, hey, I can just get on Alibaba and I'm going to knock out the sourcing problem today. You need redundancy.
Yep.
You 100% need redundancy. The approach I always took was I find my local source that's going to be usually 3-5x the cost. And I establish a relationship here. I understand it's a more expensive thing, but if we have a massive influx of order, if I get that PO for an order at Home Depot or whatever, I need an option, and I know it's going to cost me more. And then while I've got that established, then I'm working on some redundancy where it's like it can take the slow boat from China over.
And I know that starting, it's hard to take a little bit of risk. Like, there are some things that we now source that are custom manufactured from over in China. But trying to find a way in which you can take small, baby, little bets, I'll call them, where you can take a little bit of risk. It might be painful if you were to lose it, but this will establish a relationship. Like we had our products, they're adhesives, and we sell them in bottles with seals. We had a trouble getting seals for these bottles. We eventually found someone over in Singapore capable of making the material to our spec, but it was a hard process where we had to just say, okay, hey, can we buy 100 seals while we were using someone else over here in the States? And it was astronomically more expensive. And we ate that cost for a long time, and it sucked. But just finding a way to make a little bit of, take a little bit of risk each time, you'll get a little further and a little further.
Yeah, it's a sourcing is a long-term problem or process, not a problem. I mean, I don't know, I guess how you look at it. But I would say that the other thing you want to do is, as you're establishing rapport with these vendors, okay, don't be afraid to go back after time after you've shown them that, hey, yeah, you're paying your bills on time, you're ordering increasing quantities. And how many of you guys know what a blanket order is? Have you guys ever heard that term? So I use this is actually a really effective tool as you're building a rapport with a vendor. If you start to say like, look, I have a year's worth of history with you here. We bought this much, and they can look at it and say, if we sign something that says we agree to at least order a pallet worth of these, can you? Maybe you don't have space to store all of that, and maybe you don't have the cash to pay for it all up front. But they're willing to give you that bulk price as long as they can get some kind of contract in place. And then usually if you don't meet that, all you have to do is come up to what the price would be without it. And a lot of times they don't even go through that. Yeah. Chris, did you have another question? Say it again?
Blanket order. He wants to unpack it. He wants to know a little bit more about.
You want to know more about blanket order. So I think different companies call it different things, but the concept of a blanket order, go ahead.
So for us, we look at it as maybe a contract to buy over a period of time. So in essence, like when we were purchasing our bottles, we were just purchasing them at the normal retail price, and then eventually we started like ordering larger and larger quantities. They would give us some bulk discounts, and then eventually we're like, hey, listen, we've been doing this now for like 3 years. You know that we keep coming back to you. Is there a way in which we can get the best bulk price that we can, but we're not going to order them all in one batch? We're just going to say we're going to commit to spend maybe it's $60,000 in bottles per year, and you're going to give us, like the best price for that. And so that's really what it is. It's just a simple little contract saying we commit to purchasing this amount of product per year, and we could do it over the entire course of the year.
It's a really good way to negotiate better pricing, because I think it's a show of good faith on both ends that you're not just saying, hey, give me a better price. You're saying, I'm going to increase my quantity, or we'll agree to this, and we have some terms in place that they can more take to the bank.
And it's give and take for both businesses, because as we are, trying to grow ourselves, like we rely heavily on resellers, and so we find ways in which we can work with our resellers to have them commit to purchasing an X number of our products per year, so that we can plan our own growth and trajectory. Yeah. So there's gives and takes for both.
I hope that's some good tips for you, and I wish you the best of luck. I know it's a lot of work, but keep working on it, because that's probably one of the best places you can affect your bottom line, by optimizing that bill of materials and the price you're paying for things. Keep at it.
Are there any other questions?
You guys have any other questions? Yeah, come on down. Come on down. Tell us your name and your business, if you would, so we can shout you out at least.
Sure. I'm Sanford Friedman. Have a YouTube channel, S&M Makers. So far, you mostly talked about companies or activities involving physical products. Can you talk to the different mindsets or approaches if you're more on ideas or just creating, say, educational videos?
Ooh. Yeah, no, this is a great one, because one of the many hats that I wear is working with creators, working with influencers and stuff like that. And we've talked in the past too that maker that money. As a maker, there are many ways to make money, and not all of them entail physical products, right? Yep. You can build a very successful channel doing educational content. I have friends that do that very successfully. You can go the route of being an influencer. You could build an audience where you can sell ad revenue and do sponsorships and all that other stuff. We have friends that do that. And yes, there are actually like 50 different ways as a maker you can make stuff without having to make a physical product.
Yeah. So I think it really comes down to what it is that you're doing that provides value, and what can you show that value to a customer of yours, right? If you're a content creator, you have an audience, you have a platform, you have people that watch you regularly, and that's the value that you bring. And so as you continue to grow that, as you continue to build that value becomes a little bit stronger, because the following is typically bigger and more closely knit. In terms of maybe you said educational content that you're trying to produce, it's ways in which you're wrapping it maybe around a project. I'm thinking like CAD class. We've
CAD
had
class. Yeah, they're great.
They have a book that they produce. Granted, that's a little bit of a physical product, but a lot of their value comes in the little projects and electronic education that they're doing.
Yes.
And that value is, hey, I'm learning about this, and it's finding the ways in which they are working with schools and other maker spaces. Basically relaying that value to them, saying you can teach Fusion 360 to kids or to high schoolers using our curriculum. And you're basically building this out. It's a lot of legwork, but I think it comes down to identifying that value that you're providing and then putting it into a package that's understandable for a customer.
That's well said. I would add to that, a good friend of mine, you may know him, his name is Joel Telling. He's a 3D printer nerd, 3D printing, I think is his name. I don't. He does. Yeah. He has a YouTube channel. You should check it out. He's a very big. He gets asked the question a lot. If I want to start my YouTube channel, what do I need to do? What's successful? One of the first things he almost always says, if you listen for it, is what is your niche? Like, find something that you do well that makes you unique.
Yep.
Okay, because there's so many people trying to build YouTube channels out there, and we don't need another Joel. We don't need another Angus. What is it that you're bringing to the table that is different and unique? So that's the first thing I would say. The second thing I would say is as a creator, on the education front or on the content, the thing that ties us all together as businesses is what I said earlier: sales. You're still selling.
Yep.
You just have to think about how you're selling, what your value proposition is. So if it's educational content, who are your customers? Thinking about that. What are they willing to pay? Do I have to approach them directly? Like, are you going to colleges? Are you going to schools to like try them to get to buy curriculum? Or is this for like personal improvement education and stuff like that? And those are two totally different customer paths. But you need to think about what the sales channel is and how you are reaching out to them and showing them the benefits, the value, and all that stuff. I know that's kind of a very vague, overarching thing, but the main point is do not forget to be selling. Always be selling, always be closing.
Hopefully that answers your question. Awesome.
I think we can take maybe one or two more. Is there any other questions? You want to come on down here? And go ahead, tell us your name and your business idea, or if you have a website, if you want to shout it out.
So my name's Adam. We own I co-own a business. Currently we have a TikTok. It's called FuturaForge. So my question is, what are some other great tactics or events even to get yourself out there and maybe find other companies that would be willing to partner with you or work with you?
Adam, thanks for the question. What are some other tactics or events or places that you can go to find people to collaborate with, to work with?
Yeah, so I mean, I think it comes down to what is it that you're trying to be. Really think about. We were just talking about. Whether you're building an educational curriculum or a YouTube channel, what is it that you're trying to do here? Define that, because that's the biggest issue with all entrepreneurs. That they just set out to go do something and they don't really think through what it is that they're trying to do. What is their goal? And so from there, I would work backwards and say, if you're going to be in 3D printing and making, like start looking for shows, start looking for things that are near you. So start lowest hanging fruit. Easiest things to get to, easiest things that you don't have to spend a lot of money at, and then try your best and put your passion into it. You have fun with it, because if you exude this passion, if you're radiating
passion,
this,
for sure.
It's going to inspire others, and you're shining a light on others. The others are going to shine a light on you.
That's right. It's a two-way street. That's the rising tide that lifts all benches. We're bringing it home, baby. I love it. I got to echo something you said because it's important to hear. It, again, may sound obvious. A lot of you think it, but I think it's good, tough love to hear. Kevin Costner lied to you. If you build it, they will not just come. No. Okay? You have to go out and be where your customers are. So you're building a business, a channel, because you're passionate about something. So you are your best case study of who your customer is. If you're passionate, if this is a good thing, what are the events you like to go? Are you into cosplay? I want to go to the cons. Who are the people that you're trying to reach out to, and go be where they are and interact with them and let them see that you're just like them. You're one of them, and you've got this cool thing, and they want to support you because you're one of that. Like, be part of the community. That's the rising tide. That's the power.
Yep, absolutely.
All right. Do we have any other questions? I think it's a good time to wrap up. I want to thank you guys for hanging with us.
Yeah.
I mean, I know we're just kind of like sitting here fireside chatting with everybody, but I love it. I appreciate you guys. I appreciate everybody that asked us a question. I wish everybody the best of luck with their business. I encourage you to feel free to reach out to us. We are very active on social media. I'm at RepKord, RepKord on everything.
At 3D Gloop on everything.
And we encourage you, if you want, to tune into a future episode. We generally record every Friday, 9 a.m. Pacific on YouTube. It's a great way to interact with us. And you can always catch it after the fact if that's not a convenient time. So thank you guys so much. Enjoy the rest of your Earth. And
thank you.
We'll see you in the next one. Bye.
ladies and gentlemen, I would like to announce the winners of the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air contest. The runner-up for Best in Print, The General Grievous by John Albert. The winner for Best in Print was the Nuka-Cola Armor. The runner-up for Mechanical Marvel, The Recreator. And the winner for Mechanical Marvel, the Zelda Prushcaster by Steve Cregan. Please make your way to the Print and Play booth.
I'm Josh from Recreator3D.com, and today I wanted to have a reflection on home recycling and the communities that are creating it. Unfortunately, we got here by the grace of God today, and I don't have visuals with us, so I'm going to try to make this more about Q&A in a little bit, but I'm going to just go through those reflections. So thanks to the community and all my sponsors who've gotten me here today. Without them, I wouldn't be here at all today. So thank you again to my community and my sponsors. I started my journey with multi-material units, as most of us have, and I got very discouraged by the waste and wanting to reclaim it. Most of us know that any type of MMU is producing at least 50% waste, which is good, hard-earned money that most of us don't know what to do with because we don't have shredding options. Shredding options are going to be our first option to be able to get us into home recycling. And right now there's not a lot of different options for us to do that cheaply. So I established Recreator3D.com looking for methods of home recycling. And I created what I call an OG extruder, which is similar to an extruder that we're all used to that's going to be taking in our home our shreds. So I attempted the direct drive strip printer as I saw online with PET 1 initially being pulled as strips directly into the 3D printing method. This eventually brought me into looking further beyond, and I found what is called the PET pull build while working on my own version. And that eventually brought me into buying a commercial option for pultrusion unit called the PetBot. So this unit is primarily out of Russia and is built by a man named Roman Nishkashev, and he does a lot of different high-end industrial methods for recycling. So he really inspired me to help move his group and forward into my own Recreator 3D group with pultrusion. So this allowed us to make samples to send out to the community, and that was pretty much a huge request. A lot of people really wanted to try out PET 1 and see how much of a robust material it is for us. So to keep up with the interest, Recreator 3D created the MK3 unit out of Vico's X3S, which at the time was very abundant for me as I was doing repairs and bringing them back to Xvico so that they could sell to the community. So that really allowed me to see what I could use for current 3D printing and recreating our older printers into different objects like a pultrusion unit. So in 2022, I made some goals to find cheap shredders, cheap extruders, and cheap injection molding for under $1,500 as a package, as that's what most of us are now seeing for industrial printers and even higher end printers for our home 3D printing. So with that number in mind, we moved forward to do research throughout the last year. In that year, we released the MK5 Universal Kit, which is intended to use most 3D printers, so not just an Ender 3. But I want to encourage most people who have fading technology that might be collecting dust or being given to friends and family or ending up on the side of the road. We don't need any more e-waste, and the more printers that are coming out are causing more e-waste. So we want to first eliminate that. Amongst the MK5 Universal Kit, I also wanted to show just how easy it is by adding JST connections to most standard 3D printers. If you only have a single 3D printer, you still can enjoy PET pultrusion. All you have to do is add some JST connections, which will technically bring you from your freshman year into your sophomore or junior year, as far as some of us are as technical inclined. So if you just have a single printer, you're able to add JST connections and still take secondary items that go along with that printer, and you can still achieve the PET pultrusion method. So last year we got to ERF 2022, and it launched Recreator even further. with a huge community response. And today I have most of my community members here really helping support me, which is why I'm here on the stage right now and able to go do some interviews. So I really have to thank them for helping me out at my table today. The MK6 fund size was launched after EARF 2022, reducing the size of the MK5 unit down to 1/3. This was really inspired by LDO over at Jason over at LDO for helping encourage me to refine my kit and push forward to being able to make the MK6 into a small parts kit. They helped us get here today, so again, thank you for LDO for helping us with that. Moving forward with the reflection of 2022's goals in 2023, we did purchase a do-it-yourself Chen.xyz shredder at $700. We sampled an MK1 Beagle injector, but the MK3 is out now at $500. And an ArtMe extruder, which is a desktop extruder at $700. So that brings us just shy of under $2,000, kind of hitting my reflection of the $1,500 mark that I wanted to achieve. So for the majority of people who are trying to get into home recycling, again, we need that shredding option, extruding option, and injection molding option. So for under $2,000, if you're able to do it yourself, it's not going to be completely out of the box, but for the majority of a lot of us, it's going to get us started. Amongst all the pultrusion units that are coming out now, because it's very popular, I wanted to create a universal area for the community to be able to focus on pultrusion, just like extrusion and anything else right here under the RepRap roof. So I created ppu3d.com, which is Pet Pultruders United, so that we could further extend the pultrusion community for varying brands that have emerged and branched from the Recreator 3D and the pultrusion community overall. Our community is ever expanding and growing beyond what was initially imagined. And I thank you for the continued support as always. Happy recreating. I welcome any questions if you want to come up on the stage and grab the second mic. Otherwise, please speak as loud so I can hear you, and we'll repeat the question otherwise. But I open forum at this point. Does anybody have any questions? I'm going to ask you to come down just so that we can get your question good. You're good.
Which do you think would be a sooner development, reusing plastics or like general use, like molded plastics, not 3D printed plastics, or recycling 3D printed
That's a good question.
projects?
Yep. So again, ultimately, we have to think about pulverizing and then shredding. We're working with a lot of big materials and project waste. So all weekend I've been promoting just the fact that, you know, a lot of people are getting into MMU with the bamboo, and they make poop, as everybody's aware. So that comes in a variety of different shapes and sizes, just like anything else. Once we start shredding, you have to consider then what kind of shredder you're using. And so ultimately we have to pulverize and shred. Industrial shredders are going to range anywhere from like 30K to 20K. And the do-it-yourself Chen shredder that I have, you know, around the $500 range, it's small. So there might be multiple passes that you have to do. And again, we're kind of on the forefront. People have been doing it for the last decade, but we really need to push more manufacturers into the lower price points so that average people can do it. So again, that you're able to take what you've done and recycle it and reuse it. And regardless of its strength after that, you've still managed to take what you've been hoarding and saving. A lot of us have been 3D printing for a lot of years and collecting all that waste because we want to be responsible with what we do with it afterwards, except we have literally no options for that. There are options for 3D printing services that do this, but we now are wasting gas emissions, man hours, and everything else just to package up pounds of wasted product to get that to somebody who can literally facilitate the means to shred it and then reuse it again. So if we're doing that at our house and communities and companies are able to produce those cheaper units for us, the average home consumer can then just take their money that they've wasted and put it right back into their production so that they can feel like I didn't just take 50% of my money and throw it to the wind. If that didn't answer your question, I welcome you back to have a conversation. No one be shy. Please come up. I don't bite.
I just wanted to ask about how difficult is it for someone like a complete novice to assemble, build, and use the Recreator 3D?
Good question. Thank you. So ultimately, it's very easy. I've tried my best. I'm a novice, and I don't know how I got here, but I'm here. And I thank everybody for that, because at the end of the day, a lot of us have I personally have dyslexia, and so a lot of my builds end up being upside down. And a lot of my hours end up getting wasted because I go back and have to redo it. So I really attempted to bring my own process into what Recreator is. And so if I can do it, you can do it. And if you can't do it, reach out to me and I will make sure that you're recreating, because I want to make sure that everybody's able to do pet pultrusion in whatever method that they can do. And again, with the community being what it is, we've really established a lot of senior pultruders who are just open arms with wanting to help other people get recreating. So again, if you at all point feel like it's not technically at your level, we have so many people that are just willing to hold your hand and help out. And I know a lot of communities don't like noobs, and treating people online with basic questions can sometimes be horrible, but my groups are not run like that at all. I strive heavily on helping each other float through things that we have a hard time with, because some of us just don't have that extra 5% confidence that somebody else with the skill set and range has. So again, we all make this RepRap Festival what it is today based off of our skill sets and our thought process. And it doesn't matter if you're a rocket scientist or just somebody enjoying the process for the first time. We can all bring something to the table. At recreator3d.com, we're doing soda bottles into 3D printed filament. Come up, yeah, feel free.
What's your background in, and what about 3D printing appeals to you? Okay. Or what did it first?
Sure, good question. So my background, I'm actually an artist, first and foremost. A lot of people think I'm an engineer, which I'm very much not. And I hope that can be an inspiration to a lot of people, which I know it has been. And so primarily I'm into photography and videography for almost 2 decades. So I very much have to thank my community members again, because right now they're manning my table. And one of the things I really wanted to do was represent myself as JRT3D.com today. And so I was able to go to some of my sponsors' tables and see what they're all about and what they do. Because again, we're all a community and we all help each other get to where we need to be. So I really wanted to highlight what my sponsors are doing and some of the people that I really enjoy in this community. And when I get back home, I can do some highlights with them. And ultimately, what got me into 3D printing was, I think with a lot of you people, is it's fun, it's exciting, it's a new tech. It's actually not new, it's been around for almost 50 years, but to get into the popular mainstream, we need more communities and more companies similar to Bamboo who are breaking that mold into a paper printer aspect, where we've got people like Epson and HP and Xerox. So we can always have our backbone as far as open firmware and open source, because again, we wouldn't be here without that. But we really do need to invite other people in. But in the same aspect, we need those companies also showing us that they care about what they're doing to the overall impact. And so if we are okay with wasting our waste, the companies will be okay that we are okay with wasting our waste. So we need to tell them that we need more responsible companies making shredders, making extruders, stuff that can take our current stuff and break it down and give us our money back. Any other questions? Yes. I'm going to ask you to come up. I'm going to ask you to take the mic.
Has the Recreator been anywhere else besides you? Like, does anybody else have it, or any other YouTubers using it, or anything like that?
That's a good question. Thanks for asking. So ultimately, we have gone global. We actually have a pultruder out in Afghanistan, which blows my mind. We've been to Africa. We've been to several other RepRap festivals, because if we didn't have the community that is so awesome, we wouldn't have been able to do and branch out to these other festivals. So yes, we've been to several festivals throughout the world, throughout the United States, throughout the RepRaps. And anybody who wants to be an ambassador for Recreator 3D, we're looking for makerspaces and anybody else that can push pultrusion forward with Recreator 3D. But again, knowing that we're not the only pultrusion units out, I did create ppu3d.com. So if you are in another build platform for pultrusion or just looking to see what varying methods are out there, I welcome you to pp3d.com. Any other questions? All right. I'll call that my time, and I appreciate everybody who came to see me talk and came to the RepRap Festival. So happy recreating.
All right. Ladies and gentlemen, that concludes our presentations for the weekend, but now starts the giveaways. Currently, in front of me, I have the Inland Filament by Micro Center giveaway going on. So if you have a ticket, head on over to the Inland booth right now. We're going to call a number, and somebody's going to win a printer, I think, right? A Creality K1. Also, I know there's a bunch of giveaways going on, but we don't have a wireless mic, so we're not going to be doing them at each booth, but 2:30 or 2:20, I think Sovol is giving away some printers as well. So check out the Sovol booth and get your entries to win some printers from Sovol. And I know there's a bunch of other giveaways, so ready? All right, we got the Inland I can't even talk. We got the Inland Filament from Micro Center. That's what we got. So if you have a white ticket with the number 57175555. Hey, I heard somebody. 5717555. You've just won a printer. Head on over to that Inland booth by Micro Center. All right. I'm not sure who's all giving the stuff away, but I can tell you Sovol's giving some stuff away at 2:20. Their booth is in the back corner that way, and they're giving away some printers, I think, too. So Luke is over there, and other people are giving a bunch of stuff away, too. So check out their booths.